Brian Kim, you are the cloud architect at Strata Prime and a fellow Google Champion Innovator and friend of the channel. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jesse. Good to see you again. It's been a while.
Yeah, likewise, and hopefully see you in person very soon at Google Next in the next couple of months.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
The goal of this video is to walk through the options for managing ChromeOS devices, such as Chromebooks, Chromeboxes, Chrome Flex devices, ChromeOS Flex devices, from the Google Workspace Admin Panel specifically. Chrome is constantly getting updated and more powerful all the time, and even powers the automated checkout kiosks at many of your favorite restaurant chains, some of which you know about and some of which I can't tell you about, but you'll find out soon enough. Brian advises clients managing Chromebooks in their environments, so Brian, take it away from the top. How do we manage Chrome using the admin panel?
Yeah, so there is a very common question that we ask, that we get from the customers, and obviously you do need a license to manage these devices. So it's not the same as your Google Workspace license. So you do need to purchase a Chrome Enterprise Upgrade license, and there are essentially three different types of licenses. So there's a perpetual license, which sort of follows the life of the device. And there's the annual type of licenses where you can assign and unassign from the devices depending on how you want to manage your licenses. So I'm just going to go ahead and share the screen of the Google Admin Console for Workspace admins. So we didn't have a license this morning, but we just added it on trial. So this is something you can do in your Google Admin Console. So the license that you are looking for is Chrome Enterprise Upgrade. So you might be able to start a trial like we did. So we have an annual license on trial. Or you could reach out to your reseller or distributor to purchase the licenses if you already have some devices that you have purchased, but you don't have the ability to manage them. So what this essentially does is the ability to use some of the device settings. So if you navigate to Devices, Chrome Settings, so what it unlocks is the device settings menu. So this applies to the devices that you enroll, and we'll go through the device enrollment process in a bit. And in terms of the device enrollment, typically, let's say you are buying a device from a retailer like Best Buy, Walmart, what have you, you will need to go through what's called a manual enrollment. So all it really requires is a user's email address and password who has the enrollment permission. So I'm just going to search for user and browser settings first. So this should be on by default for most of the domains. So what you want to double check for is the enrollment permissions and then confirming whether a user has the ability to enroll the device. So if they do, most cases that answer is yes, then the user will be able to enroll. So you may be in organizations where you want to prevent it, then in that case, you can set it to do not allow, and then you can select the org unit where your users are in, and then allow them to enroll. So that's how you can manage those settings. So if we go to the devices overview page, so right now we don't have any Chrome OS devices, but once Jesse completes the enrollment on one of his test devices on his desk, he should be able to, or we should be able to see the device once it's successfully enrolled. So Jesse, you want to give that a go?
Yeah, I'll take care of that right now. So you issued me a new account on the test domain. And I am doing this on my test device here. This is what are we looking at? The Asus CX3402CB. I don't know what the friendly name of this is. I keep forgetting. But Asus sent this over for me to review, so appreciate that, Asus. Where's the box? The friendly name for this is, no, that is the friendly name. I guess they don't have easy names, but this is a new Chromebook Plus unit from them, and this is bundled, actually. So this has, where's my camera? This has an enrollment screen directly on it when I open it up right away. So
nice, awesome. Yeah, so one thing that I forgot to mention about the different licenses types. So sometimes some of the OEMs will bundle a license along with the device. So that's something to watch out for. So you're not over purchasing your Chrome licenses. So it may be good to check with your distributor or the retailer that you are buying from to make sure that the licenses are either included, or if it's not included, you have a way of purchasing these licenses through different channels.
Yep. Just like that, I've now enrolled it in the domain, and you can actually see it on the bottom there, enrolled in workspaceadmins.org, and then I could proceed to sign into my account.
Awesome. Then I can share my screen again and go back to the admin console. And as Jesse mentioned, we now can see the devices, and let's just click on it and see what information that you have available.
CX34 is the friendly name.
Okay. So from here, we can see the form factor, which we'll talk about, serial number, what type of licenses it was assigned, what the fields are, and which you can edit using through the Google Admin Console or using the API as well. So some of you may know that I like to work using Google Apps Manager or GAM. So Google does have a fairly extensive API that you can play around with. And here we can also see some OS information when the device will continue to receive update from Google. So this device is set to receive updates till 2032. So it's quite a while. So
that's amazing.
So this I'm quite jealous because I have an older Chromebook in front of me that'll expire sometime in the next couple of years. So we don't have any storage, memory, or CPU, or some of the telemetry information yet. So we may have that turned off in this domain for now, but that's something that's also available to you as an admin. So you get a single pane of glass in terms of troubleshooting your hardware. And then you can see some network status as well, and then policies that are applied. So we don't have any policies configured for this device yet. So we don't have any shown here, but you can play around with some policies, which we'll get into. And going back to the device screen here, and then just go back to the device itself. So let's talk about the form factor a bit. So as a knowledge worker myself, my favorite form factor would be a clamshell type of device, so it's a traditional laptop, but you may have some cases where something like a tablet may be more desirable, and Google does have some, or has had some tablets in the past. I don't know which OEMs are actively making or making them today, but Google does have a publish or a wayfinding guide. So if you search for Chrome wayfinding guide, SHI, which is one of the larger distributors for hardware, does publish a PDF version of Google's wayfinding guide. So if you have a specific types of hardware you're looking for. So Jesse is showing one in front of him. Only tablets are in front of him. Only tablets I have in front are iPads, unfortunately.
This is the one that's like a mini Microsoft Surface, 11-inch.
Awesome. Yeah.
Back comes off, tablet, etc. It's a great little device. I should use this again.
Yeah. So anyway, so I'm showing the PDF here. So this is the wayfinding guide for second half of this year, as you can see at the top. So it basically divides the information into a few different workloads. So you have standard versus advanced, and from there you can see different use cases. So contact center users, shared devices, modern worker. So that allows you to sort of like quickly find different types of devices from different manufacturers for your hardware selection. Obviously, some manufacturers or distributors may have these devices on hand. Otherwise, they may need to back order these items to fulfill your hardware requirements. So this is one information that everyone should refer to when trying to purchase new hardware. And the other thing too is the Chrome auto update policy. So Jesse's device will be receiving updates until 2032. But there may be some older devices with a similar model name. One prime example is Samsung's new Galaxy Chromebook Plus, or whatever the name might be. But Samsung actually used to have an older device called Chromebook Plus. So they're not necessarily the same. Chromebook Plus is a new designation that Google came up with, I think, sometime earlier this year or last year. So that's something to watch out for. So if I let's search for Samsung as an example. So here you can see they had a Chromebook Plus. Their AUE already expired earlier last year. And Galaxy Chromebook Plus expires in June 2032. So some devices have a very similar model name. So make sure that you are purchasing a right device that will continue to receive updates for the foreseeable future. Okay, so the reason for me mentioning the AUE or auto update expiry is the it relates to the total cost of ownership. So before, when some customers were trying to understand how much a Chromebook truly costs, they were purely looking at the hardware, so initial hardware purchase price, which used to be quite cheaper than other Mac or PC counterparts. But Chromebook has since then expanded to use same types of CPUs or same specs of memory. So the hardware price has gone up for some of the more advanced workloads. So what's now important is the cost of managing these hardwares. So going back to the cost of the licensing. So Chrome licenses does have that license component, but you also need to compare that to the cost of MDMs for Windows devices. You might be thinking of using Microsoft Endpoint Manager, or formerly known as Intune. And if you are managing Mac devices, you might be using products like Jamf, Kanji, or any other MDMs that might be a little more Mac specific. So compare those two devices, and then there's also a lot of TCO analysis that Google has commissioned in the past, where they were comparing how much time it takes to re-image or re-image a Windows device versus how quick it is to factory reset a Chromebook and then issue that to another user. So we'll just walk through that, what the process looks like in the admin console. Okay, so I'll just go back to the admin console here. Okay, so here, I'll need to share this tab instead. So here is where I can disable a device. So let's say the device gets lost or stolen. You just want to lock it down. You can quickly disable it here. Deprovision means that you are retiring it from fleet. So if you are, let's say, replacing a device, you might want to disable deprovision, change upgrade. This is where you can switch between different license types. So, and I just realized we didn't talk about the kiosk and signage upgrade. So Jesse gave a good example earlier, how some of these Chrome devices. So I think there's Chrome box, so like it's small boxes that usually get tucked behind screens. So those are some use cases for signage or kiosk devices at like restaurants as a prime example. So you can switch license for a device. So kiosk licenses are typically cheaper than a user license. And let's see, reboot and reset. So those are the two. Reset is basically resetting back to factory settings. So I think the menu used to say power wash, but I think the menu has changed for some reason. And then reboot is another just remote command for you to just restart a device. Okay, and let me just go back here and let's take a look at some of the policies actually. And let me first double check to see what org unit it's in. So when Jesse, you enroll the device, okay, I'll just move this to the org unit that I created. Devices, manage Chromebooks. Okay, that's the one I created. Okay. So as a general rule of thumb, I like to create separate org units for devices from users, mainly because I want to distinguish different policies that I'm applying. If it's simply the device level policies, it doesn't matter as much. I keep forgetting where I should be clicking. Settings. Okay. So if it's device settings, it only applies to a device, so it's fine. But if I'm looking at user and browser settings, so it'll depend on any managed user, regardless of whether they are signing into and the one thing to particularly pay attention to is the different icons here. So the ChromeOS related policies will have a laptop icon, and the rest are the Chrome browser on a desktop endpoint. and Android and iOS or Chrome browsers for iOS and Android devices. So one thing that I just want to quickly check here is the device settings, manage Chromebooks, device settings, and full text contains. Let's see, manage. Okay. I think it's, yeah, this setting here. So in terms of device settings and managed guest session settings, so that's worth paying attention to. So device settings applies to the entire device, and managed guest session settings only applies if you're putting the device into a managed guest session mode. So you might have a device that's in a public space, so using library, or let's say we use car dealership as an example. So you may have a Chromebook or Chromebox on an open space. You may want to just give the dealership staff or public to use that Chromebook without having to log into a individual Google account. So you may launch a set of web pages or set of applications when user walks up to the device and clicks on the button, and that's what's called a managed guest session. Whereas some of the device settings sort of govern the entire device, and then that will allow you to configure some policies to allow the users to sign in using their Google managed Google accounts. And moving on to user and browser settings. So this is what we looked at very briefly. So this governs a user's experience when they're signed into a Chrome device. So this is where you can really customize the experience for an end user. And in order to make sure that the user's transition to a Chromebook or ChromeOS device is as seamless as possible, is to understand how they are using their devices today. So Google did recently release an update to a ChromeOS readiness tool, or they like to call it ChromeOS readiness tool 2.0. So I'll share my different tab here. So this is a tool that can be installed in Windows environment to sort of understand what your users are using. So it does collect some data in terms of users' application usage. So if the users are using SaaS applications, likely not an issue because most of their day-to-day are browser-based. So those users are relatively easy to transition to a Chromebook. But if their application requires some desktop thick client, so that's when you may need to potentially look at delaying their transition to a ChromeOS, or potentially take a look at virtualizing some of those applications. So there may be some advanced use cases that you can get some insights from. And in terms of managing the change, and Google does have some articles on this as well. So they have worked with some consultants before about managing change. So change needs to be done both from bottom up and top down. So that goes up without saying. So you need to make sure that you either give the users the ability to test drive a Chromebook. So one common thing we have seen succeed at some organization is what Google used to call a grab and go program, which is essentially the ability for users to just take a Chromebook on a loan. Let's say they lost a device, or their device is undergoing some repair. They just grab a Chromebook, see how it works. And a lot of customers that we have worked with, or we have heard from other customer success stories at Google, is that users liked it so much and they just didn't want to go back to their traditional endpoint. So that's how you can sort of like manage change as well from bottom-up approach. And we have seen some instances where users are told to start using a Chromebook. So depending on who those users are, that may go fairly well or they may go sideways. So you need to really understand how the users are using their devices. Jesse, I don't know if you have any notes from the field in terms of managing change?
Yeah, I was taking a look at this ChromeOS readiness tool, and it's completely different than the one that I knew about before. As you mentioned, this is relatively new. It's a little bit bizarre on the branding here. Like it's ChromeOS branding, but it says it's by Codamite, so I don't know why they're doing that. I'm gonna have to look into that and figure that out. But the UI looks relatively similar to what I have used in the past, except it is way more streamlined and looks to be so much more simpler and with a lot better graphs and information on that. So I'm looking forward to playing around with this. I am just curious about why it's by Codamite and who they are and where that came in. Did they buy the company or something, or what happened there?
Yeah, I'm not too sure, but I have seen that branding as well on this page before, and I do have access to an installer. So if anyone listening in is a Chrome partner, so you may have access to the tool, or customers may be able to fill out a form and be put in contact with the Chrome team, and they might be able to test drive this tool as well. But I think Codamite was the sort of like the vendor or partner of Google or Google Chrome team to develop this second iteration of the tool.
Interesting. It is very unlike Google to leave someone else's branding on their tool.
Yeah,
But this is the official tool. Okay.
yeah. And in terms of the actual Chrome policies, obviously there is a lot. So I'll share my screen again and show you one example of what. So we were on these devices. So notice how scroll bar is. There's a lot for you to go through. So there are some benchmarks. So namely, the Center for Internet Security has a Chrome OS benchmark, and I'll give a link to Jesse to include in the video description. So that'll give you some baseline security policies you might consider. So that's one good source of information. And I believe Google has had some previous versions of some of their recommended policies as well. And if I find it, I'll include it. But most of the documentation that I've seen or that I had bookmarked in the past had gone out of date. But Chrome is always evolving. And one place that I like to go quite often is Enterprise or Chrome Enterprise Google/policies.
You're not sharing that screen.
Thank you.
Yep.
There you go. So this one has all the Chrome policies, whether it applies to the browser or the device. So this is where you can search for policies by name. So one thing that I recently searched for was allow domains for apps. So this one really, it affects both the Google Chrome browser as well as ChromeOS. So this policy in particular controls which accounts your users are allowed to use either in a Chrome browser on a Chrome device. So this is a policy that I commonly configure for customers that might be a little more security oriented or concerned about users accessing their consumer Gmail accounts. So this is where I usually take the customers to. So for them to think about what your users are allowed to do, and other policies, especially for ChromeOS devices, might include disabling USB ports on the device, or disabling storage devices over USB, disabling screenshots, disable printing, things like that. So CIS benchmark will definitely cover some of those items. And one other item that I like to bring attention to is ChromeOS data controls. So this is a sort of like policy that you can configure for ChromeOS devices as well. And then it'll give you some control over what your users can do on a Chromebook. So it's not necessarily limited to controlling USB devices, but this controls some DLP, allows you to configure some DLP policies on a Chromebook. So again, very security oriented. So this policy, along with Chrome Enterprise, sort of like gives you the ability to secure your endpoints much easier than you can do on a Chrome browser on a Mac or Windows device. So this is something that I that I work with commonly for customers that are definitely security oriented.
Cool.
And finally, keeping up with the updates, Chrome release notes is here. So you can follow along with the Chrome updates on either this page, or there is also a Chrome updates blog as well. But this will be probably better for most admins because it gives you a summary in a table format, which is easier to consume than updates that follow sequentially one after the other. And if you scroll down, you can definitely take a look at what's changing to Chrome browser, what's changing on the ChromeOS, and if there's any policies that are getting deprecated, then you can take a look at there as well. And one final item is Chrome Trusted Tester. And I can't really speak to what's in it, but Google does have a trusted tester program, and you can sign up as a Google's customer. And it used to show some information, but the page isn't loading for me. But the page I was on previously, the sign up page here. So if you click up sign up now, and if the page loads fine, then you should be able to sign up for different features that Google might be working on as part of their trusted tester program. But this is where you can give some feedback to Google, whether it's a feature related to Chrome browsers or Chrome Enterprise upgrades or managing Chrome devices. And one item that I forgot to mention is the ChromeOS Flex devices. And and Jesse, I don't know if you've done a video on ChromeOS Flex devices before, or maybe it was
Not
with
yet.
Dominic. Okay.
Oh, maybe maybe a long time ago with them.
Yeah. So we talked about the Chrome licenses. So these Chrome licenses that you purchase can be used to either manage the actual ChromeOS hardware with all the built-in security, or if you also have any old compatible hardware lying around that's been certified by Google or not certified by Google, depending on your use case, you can essentially turn those devices into a ChromeOS Flex devices, or what used to be called Cloud Ready or Cloud Ready 2.0. And you can start to manage those devices as well. So if you have some hardware some aging hardware that's still usable, but it's not performing quite the same with Windows or Mac operating system, you might want to consider upgrading those to ChromeOS Flex and start managing those devices.
Yep. I'm going to be working on a video showing off how to do that with a old iMac from 2017 or so, 2020 maybe. Nice. One of the last Intel iMacs, and the installation process is pretty straightforward. You get a USB drive and you can make your own, or you can get them from Google. That's what I was just looking for over here. I went to a Google event in New York and they gave me one, but I thought I had it on my desk, but I can't find it at the moment. But essentially you just boot off that USB flash drive and you start the installation and it downloads updates and then it installs it for you.
Yeah, one challenge that I had with creating that bootable USB stick is not all USB sticks are made the same. So sometimes I would successfully be able to create an image or bootable USB stick, and I plug into a laptop and nothing happens. So finding the right combination sometimes is a challenge, but I'm sure you have one lying around that will work. But otherwise, Google probably should make a list of compatible flash drives too, if possible. Or I'm sure if you ask someone from the Cloud Ready or the ChromeOS Flex team, I'm sure they have a list of hardware that they have tested.
Yep, I actually just met that whole team, so I can give that feedback to them. They have two actual laboratories where they do the testing on hundreds of devices on everything from restaurant kiosks to Macs, old MacBook Pros or iMacs, all the way down to like funky, weird prison computers that are totally transparent that I was telling Brian about before the show, that are very interesting and very unique use case. And they had also like the old Microsoft Surfaces. the Windows S device that was designed to kill Chrome and didn't exactly kill Chrome, because Chrome is still the king when it comes to this, and I think they actually don't make Windows S anymore. So, victory for Chrome, I suppose.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's it for what I wanted to cover in terms of what's possible with the Chrome Enterprise Upgrade license, or Chrome Enterprise Upgrade licenses, or being able to manage the ChromeOS hardware in the Google Admin Console after you initially enroll. And just to recap, you do need a Chrome licenses to manage your hardware, and those licenses can be either perpetual or annual, and also be bundled with your with the license with the hardware that you buy. So make sure that you are buying the licenses that you need. And after that, once the devices are enrolled, it's easy to change the policies on the fly. So make sure that you put the devices in the right org-unit and try testing some policies, whether it's a user and browser policies or the device policies itself.
Yeah, one question that I wanted to follow up on was, how does the Chrome Enterprise license that you get for this differ from Chrome managed browsers?
Yeah, so Google did change some wording on some of those branding, which is quite confusing for me as well. So I'll just go back to the admin console here, and I'll show you what I mean. So if I go to the subscriptions, so Chrome Enterprise Core is a free license that's available to any Google customer. So you don't even need to have a Google Workspace license. So this used to be called the Chrome Browser Cloud Management, or CBCM. And I think, Jesse, you've had Alex Bauer from Chrome team that talked about it before at length. So that's probably a great video for you to, or any of the subscribers to take a look at. So that's what that is. And Chrome Enterprise Premium is what used to be called Beyond Core Enterprise. So that allows you to configure some additional Chrome policies in the Google Admin Console, and also give you the ability to configure some policies on GCP side to control access to some of the protected resources. And Chrome Enterprise Upgrade is the management licenses for the Chrome hardware. So Google is sort of like bringing everything under the Chrome Enterprise umbrella, and then in that transition, some of the meaning may have gotten lost, but this is something, unfortunately, we have to work with as a Google Cloud partner or Chrome partner as well. So just need to make sure that we understand what each license does, and then how they're assigned and purchased.
Yeah, and one thing I want to clarify also is the way that I was able to assign this to the domain. This particular device that I'm using, this Asus, is already enterprise enrolled. It wasn't enrolled to this domain, but it came with the license on it. If you're using a different device, such as this, what do I have, Acer over here, which also was sent over to me for review. This one just has the regular Welcome to Chromebook Plus screen on it. And if you have that, there's a keyboard shortcut for it. Do you remember what it is, Brian? I think it's like Control-Shift-E or something.
Yeah, I think it's either Control-Alt-E or Control-Shift-E. Yeah, it's been a while since I did a manual enrollment.
Control-Shift-E, no. Control-Alt-E, no. Anybody? Yeah, can you look it up for me?
Yeah.
Let's see here. Nope. Trying all the different combos here.
Yeah, Control-Alt-E should bring up the enrollment screen.
Control-Alt-E. Maybe I have to hit get started first. Let's see.
Yeah, get started, connect to Wi-Fi, and then Control-Alt-E.
Yeah, that would do it. Okay. Test 1, 2, 3, I think is that password. Nope, I actually don't know my Wi-Fi password. I'll have to cut the dead air here, I guess. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, okay. So that's connecting to the Wi-Fi. The first thing I had to do was connect it to the Wi-Fi, hit get started, and then connect to the Wi-Fi, and then did it work? It's connecting. No, maybe not. There we go. Has to get the right password. Now it says getting the device ready. And there you go. It came right up as device enrollment.
Awesome.
So there you go. There you have it. All right. Thank you, Brian. That is a ton of information and a nice deep dive into getting that set up. Brian is extremely active in various communities and often answering questions on YouTube and on Slack communities and Google forums and whatnot. So if you have questions, drop them in the comments below. I will, if I can't answer them, then I'll make sure that I ping Brian, and oftentimes he'll come parachuting in with the answer, as he is definitely an expert in this space. So Brian, thank you again for coming on the show.
No worries. Thanks, Jesse. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure.